wanna talk? So let's talk. Here. Talk. You wanna talk? You gotta talk, you need to talk. News talk.
I talk, you talk to Solomon. I talk, you talk to Solomon. Yeah, let's talk to Solomon. Talk to Solomon.
You gotta talk, you wanna talk.
Good evening, everyone. This is Talk to Solomon. That's me, StanSolomon. I'm the host.
I'm Chief Steve Davis, the in-studio co-host.
And our guest of honor is our friend, Dr. Alan Keyes. Alan, good evening.
Good evening. Hi, Chief.
Hello, Doctor.
You know what? We've had a lot of shows together, Alan. We've been friends and fellow hosts and talking about these things for decades. Not bad for two guys that haven't reached 30, but the fact is, and I'm talking IQ, not of course age, but my point is, I don't think there's ever been a more monumental time in American history outside of 9/11 and perhaps the Nixon impeachment time, which by the way was a tempest in a teapot, but liberals made that tempest successful. We have with this current administration, not one, not two, not five, not 10, not 100, but 100,000 times more in the way of substance than we had with Nixon. And yet, the question is still out whether the people in this country, at all and any level, will understand that the very foundations of the republic are literally teetering and swaying. Am I overstating?
Oh, no, I don't think you're overstating at all. In fact, it's over the course of many, many months now, actually several years, that I've been trying to get people to understand the real implications of what Barack Obama represents. And I want to be clear about this because I try to get people to open their eyes to the fact that when I say Barack Obama and what he represents, I am not talking about him as an individual. I am talking about the forces that he represents, forces that span the spectrum in terms of our ordinary politics, that generally speaking are committed to the overthrow of our constitutional system of self-government. And by overthrow, I mean quite seriously to remove all real power and authority from the people and their representatives. They'll be happy to keep the facade, the outward appearance of elections and stuff. But it will have been reduced to a sham, as many people I think are beginning to recognize it already is. And the things that we're confronted with right now, particularly if you look at the IRS business, these are late-term symptoms. It's as if you're dealing with a patient who has cancer and you are getting those indications that come in the late stages as it begins to spread throughout the body. And this is what is going on. And sadly, it's easier to deal with if you get to it early, but folks were unwilling to wake up. It is now getting late. The bad symptoms, the ones that finally constitute the terminal nature of the illness, are starting to emerge. And still, there are folks who want to act as if this is business as usual, and it can be taken care of with the usual analysis of our politics. I was struck by that, by the way, Stan, in looking at the remarks that are reported from Rush Limbaugh the other day, where he is talking as if, well, impeachment, that's out of the question, that's impossible, that's just a dream, that can't happen, we got to get these Democrats out. And I'm sitting here chuckling to myself and saying, yeah, Rush, just like we got them out of the House of Representatives, we've seen how much good that has done, and so forth. I think the idea that this can be somehow reduced to the usual politics is just silly, especially when it comes to dealing with things that are not abuses of persons only. They are constitutional abuses. They are abuses that constitute the disregard for and overthrow of the arrangements and provisions of the Constitution of the United States. And once the Constitution is gone, people do understand, don't they, that we don't have a free government. We have a government that then depends on whatever happens to be the power equation of the moment, and that means tyranny. Because once you reduce your government to rule by force and fear and intimidation, that's what you've got.
And we are at that precipice. Now, I have a lot of things I want to cover today, so we're going to just try and touch on them, even though any one of them we could spend the entire hour talking about. Chief, first let me go to you to get a comment.
Well, first of all, I'm tired of hearing all these comments about which one of these scandals is the worst. They're all the worst, although two of them did cause the murder of Americans, Fast and Furious and the Benghazi scandals. But whether Barack Obama, first of all, he has lied, cheated, stolen, and murdered. But it doesn't matter what he does unless someone's going to take him to task. And so the GOP is the key to all this. Unless the GOP takes him to task for these, it doesn't really matter what he does. He's going to get away with all of it. And so since the GOP has no backbone, we are going to have to make sure that our GOP legislators fear us more than they fear Barack Obama.
Well said. All right. I want to talk about a few things. I want to mention Gosnell, the abortionist bastard, and I don't mean to demean bastards, and the other killer, Carpin, that these people brag, enjoy, savor the moments when they can kill a child, when they can snap a neck or cut a spine or whatever procedures they use. And this Gosnell moron, this 17-year-old person, and there's another one, what's her name? Riley, Nicole Riley. Now, if there were a white man or woman who specialized in killing black children, many of the race pimps on the black side, and there are race pimps on every side, would be saying, why, you're horrible. But because this Riley and Gosnell are both quote-unquote black Americans, that they killed overwhelmingly black babies, somehow it's not bad to black people. Now, I'm not going to ask for an explanation because there is no explanation other than ignorance and people that just are stupid, too stupid to see, but for the grace of God, it would be them or their kids being murdered unceremoniously by these monsters. But there is a story I'd like everyone to comment on. I'll start with you, Alan, about no matter what face they're putting forward, Planned Parenthood, abortionists, that whole industry, they're starting to panic. They know that there is a single event, a single incident, a single whatever thought process away from the people just finding them and executing them summarily. Alan.
Well, Stan, I think part of the reason that the folks at Planned Parenthood and all that are panicking is that they are starting to feel what I have always thought were the necessary consequences of exposing people to what is really going on in abortion. And when I say what is really going on, Stan, I don't just mean in terms of the physical death of the babies, though that can certainly move people who finally start to confront the gruesome reality of it. I think what Gosnell represents that was deeply disturbing to a lot of people is the spiritual and psychological damage that is inflicted by this practice of abortion. The monstrous acts resulted in and exposed an individual whose humor and jocularity about this whole business, whose hardness with respect to it, whose cavalier and callous and careless attitude toward the life he was extinguishing. This is what I think shocked a great many folks, and what also, Stan, confronts them with the truth, that the ultimate price of this whole abortion travesty is not to kill the bodies of those helpless offspring of our humanity. It is to kill the soul and spirit and heart and conscience of individuals and ultimately of our nation itself. And I think that that's what people are starting to chew on. I've been trying to get folks to see this for decades, literally, and to feel it. I have given speech after speech and written things, and others have done the same, trying to get folks to look at that spiritual, moral reality. But sadly, a lot of folks don't appreciate the moral cost until they are actually confronted with the monsters that result from this kind of spiritual death and mayhem.
Chief?
No, well said, Dr. Keys. And what I see is we have been told for many, many years that what's happened in an abortion is, first of all, the word abortion, which is murder, is it's a procedure. It's removing a tissue mass. It's just, taking care of some type of a medical complication. But in reality, what we have is we're finding out that abortion is really more heinous and more gruesome than the murders by Michael Myers in Halloween or Jason in Friday the 13th, where in this latest example we hear of doctors that are pulling unborn babies partially from their mother's womb, throwing the mother into a taxi cab, driving them to another city while the baby's still hanging out of their body, and then viciously, brutally chopping that baby into bits while the babies are screaming. It's an awful, grotesque, horrible murder, and it's not a procedure. It's not just an abortive technique. It's not just a medical procedure. It's the murder of human beings, and in this case, American humans, which are guaranteed the right to life by God and our Constitution.
Again, both of you are hitting it. Let me add this to it, and I won't assign this to either Dr. Keys or Chief Steve. If you kill babies purposefully, then you have no right or reason to be alive, because you contribute nothing and you take everything. I won't go any further. Now, let's talk about life. We just had an incredible disaster in Oklahoma. We had a tornado hit everything. Among the everything, it hit a school. We were told a lot of children died. And we cried and we mourned and we shrieked and wailed. Then we found out that while God, now some people don't know God, and okay, you're out of the conversation. But while God does or allows to have happen what God does and allows to have happen, God also is there. So most, not all unfortunately, but most of the people, and especially the children we thought were dead, they weren't. I want just to say, think for a minute. The train rolled down the track, over the car, filled with the family. There was no way they could survive, and yet more than half of them did. If you don't believe in God, what's your explanation? Chief?
Well, I was impressed and amazed. I'm sure the news media was appalled by how many of the victims, the surviving victims of this awful tornado, referred to how they prayed to God and thanked God that they were alive and for their family members. And then again, last night when I went to bed, it was 51 people were dead. And then after prayers, a lot of prayers by a lot of people, we found out today that it wasn't. It was 24, which is a blessing in its own. But I want to tell you about a little story I saw earlier where a woman live on television was standing outside her home. Her home was totally flattened. She had nothing left at all, but she said, I just thank God that I'm alive. She said, I just wish my little dog would have made it. So I prayed to God to save me and my little dog, but my little dog's under this rubble somewhere. Suddenly, live on camera, the dog appeared out of the rubble, and the lady was just ecstatic, but said, God answered both of my prayers. And so, to me, that was just a shining moment that God is there, and God is there for everybody. We're all going to die. Nobody gets out alive. So there is going to be death in this world, but still faith and love and hope in God and Jesus can bring a lot of people through a lot of things.
Alan?
Well, Stan, I too, we are always struck with both some of the miraculous qualities that our human events can present us with, miraculous in terms of God's love, miraculous in terms of the resilience of the human spirit and the compassion that people around the country and around the world will show for folks in the midst of such a disaster. But in terms of life, Stan, I guess I always think, especially these days, of the fact that as a Christian person, I'm counseled to not to grieve as if I have no hope. hope being the affirmation of that life which is to come, and which is available to all who are willing to make the choice that opens the path, a pathway of God's grace through Christ to them. And you never know. I don't ever assume how God's going to work that out for people. And so I guess I always find myself praying at times like these, not only for the living in gratitude for God sparing their lives, but I pray to God for those who have left us, who have been taken out of this world, who have died in the sense that they are no longer participating in this physical life of ours, but who nonetheless have before them the prospect of that life which was in the first place given to human beings and which we lost on account of the fall, but which is restored in hope through Christ. And so there is always that life to pray for, which is not just that life should be saved here in the sense that we understand it in our matter and our flesh, but that by God's grace and the opening of their hearts and spirits, their lives can be saved in that kingdom which he governs through all time. And I spend a lot of time praying in that sense. I think it's one of those things that allows us to see the terrible tragedy in one way, but also pray for the glorious outcome that transcends all possible tragedy and is still in the gift of God's love and mercy.
Stan, I want to add just one quick thing. If you put your faith in government, you will be woefully disappointed, but put your faith in God and Jesus, and you will be rewarded in this world and the next.
Well said, amen. Now, I'm going to change subjects. Paradigm shift here. In New York City, a fellow by the name of Mark Carson, 32 years old, was shot and killed, murdered in cold blood by a despicable lowlife who did not like the fact that he was an openly or appeared to be an openly gay person. Now, this guy that killed him, who's been arrested, had a Hispanic name that I don't happen to see right now, but at any rate, the fellow that killed him was caught. I'm glad he was caught. I hope he gets the death penalty. And I hope that someone gay gets to shoot him in the head. That to me is fair. Now, let's get beyond that, not beyond it, but let's talk about that. This man who was killed because of his outward sexuality, and the comments made by this man confirmed that, so it wasn't something someone thought was the case, the guy said as much, has triggered marches and demonstrations, thousands of people saying, end hate crimes. All right? Now listen to Solomon here. There's nothing more hateful than having homosexual sex, because the average person in the homosexual lifestyle, male, loses half, ready? Half, 50% of their life because they're in that lifestyle, and that's not counting age. That's simply fact. 98%, 97.5% of all homosexuals are killed by other homosexuals. Are there any marches? You don't tolerate ice cream and whatever, movies, good movies. You tolerate sickness. You tolerate poverty. So all this talk of good people tolerate, wrong answer. You don't tolerate bad things. You work for good things. Those of you who care about that, march around and say, stop having homosexual sex because you're killing the people you're having homosexual sex with. That's fact. Chief.
Well, I've never been a proponent of hate crimes. I think they're just a ridiculous way to waste time and money. If someone kills you illegally, they should be punished for killing you regardless of the reason. If they break your arm illegally, they should be punished regardless of why they did it. And so we're not going to be able to legislate people's thoughts or their hatred of other people. That's just going to be a fact of life always. So we should focus on catching criminals and stopping criminal acts, but as far as adding penalties or trying to legislate people's dislike or dislike of other people, it's just not going to happen. So, but again, we just talked about this abortion issue. I don't see these homosexuals getting out and really marching against all these doctors chopping up babies, but for one of their own, they're all for it. But again, like you said, it's a lifestyle that creates a lower lifespan, a shorter lifespan, and so if they want to do something to help each other, they should try to strive for a longer life.
Alan?
Well, I have to agree wholeheartedly with what the chief said. I remember some years ago I wrote a column or article. The title of it was "Why I Hate Crimes," and it was for precisely this reason, that at the end of the day, one should be punishing people for what they do that violates the fundamental laws that we are all to observe. And killing folks in this depraved way is one of those things that just crosses the line and has to be punished. And that's true no matter who the victim is. If you have wantonly taken human life in a murderous way, then you should be tried and convicted and punished accordingly, period. When you start getting into the question of motive, except insofar as it has a bearing on whether it is reasonable to believe that you killed that person, because obviously your motive of hatred, clearly established, can be factored into a jury's considerations when they're deciding whether you're guilty or innocent, because that helps to confirm that you had a motive to do what you did. Okay, that's fine. I understand taking account of hatred there. But trying to legislate so that you're going to tell people that we're not worried about what you're doing, we're going to punish you for what you think. We're going to punish you for what you feel. I decided many years ago, in the context of being a black American and having to confront people who, on account of just looking at the color of my skin, were showing hatred and contempt and all of this. Do you know what you arrive at eventually if you have any respect for yourself? You arrive at the point, and I have to confess my Christian faith and understanding help me here. You arrive at the point where you feel sorry for those people. You feel sorry for them because they are, in fact, putting themselves in a place where they are dying spiritually, morally, in a way that leads to the sort of death that has no relief, that isn't just the transition from this life to a better one. And that's a very sad thing. But at the end of the day, then, what am I led to do? I'm actually led to pray for those folks. To pray that somehow minds will be changed and hearts will be opened to a better truth and a better life. That's what I think Christ meant when he said that you have to stand back and think things through, because you will see what it is you must pray for those who have made themselves your enemies on account of their hatred of you. Now, does law enter into all of this? I would argue that it doesn't. Anymore, you can't tell me that it's right to start somehow trying to force people to change their way of thinking and their way of feeling about you, any more than it would be, I don't know, right to force them to change their religious views or other things that at the end of the day must be subject before God to their own choice and their own responsibility. And that's the final point I would make. I think hate crimes at the end of the day go down a road that actually leads us to denigrate the responsibility people have for managing and handling their emotions and their feelings in such a way that regardless of them, they stay within the boundaries of that decent conduct we have the right to expect from every human being who lives in our community.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back. We're going to talk about global warming. We had a senator, Whitehouse I think is his name, Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island, that said red state people, because they deny global warming, are causing the tornadoes, and then they want the believers in the blue states to help them to pay. Yeah, I did say that. Think about that for a moment. You'll have a time to use a barf bag, and we'll be right back. I like to eat. Do you like to eat? We all do. And usually we run to the grocery store, we run to the convenience store, or we have something in the fridge. But power's been out in parts of this country in the last few weeks. We don't know what's going to come down the pike economically. Smart people are putting in food. Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves is a line of foods that you can put away that will last for a very long time. You know, they say eat what you store and store what you eat. This is great tasting stuff, healthy for you, a full line. You go to our website, cpnlive.com, and click on the button for Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves and see all the different things we have. This is good tasting food. It's reasonably priced. It will last. And it's worth its weight in gold if a problem arises. I know you don't think there's going to be anything that goes wrong. Actually, you do. This is smart. This is smart insurance. This is smart preparation. This is smart thinking. You have kids, you have a spouse, you have parents, you have dependents, you have an appetite. All those things can be addressed by a frugal but smart investment in Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves. Try them out. You will be tickled to death with the taste of them. And you know what? In many cases, people start to eat this and they think, heck, this tastes better and costs less than what you're going to the grocery store to buy. cpnlive.com. Check it out. Hey, my name is StanSolomon, and you know if I have something to say, I'll say it. And I'll only tell you the truth because I'm a Republican, not a Democrat. Democrats always lie. Republicans only lie half the time. I don't lie at all. This is the Fuel Mule. It's an extraordinary product that was developed by a friend of mine, an engineer, and it increases the fuel mileage on your vehicle. If you have a combustion engine, this will increase your mileage by 10 to 20%. It bolts around your fuel line. You can install it yourself or have your mechanic do it. It is an extraordinary item, and it flat works. I've been using it for more than 10 years. It's increased my mileage on every vehicle I put it on, and by the way, it will last forever. You can get rid of your vehicle, just take it off and put on the next one. Go to cpnlive.com. You'll have more information there. You can order it right there. We absolutely guarantee you'll be satisfied. The Fuel Mule. It's a way to kick down your cost of fuel and kick up your mileage. Don't you love the name? I thought of it. The Fuel Mule. Let me ask you a question. Do you like being sick? I have in my hand an incredible product. It's called TR10 Supercolloidal Silver. TR10 stands for a trace to the negative 10th power. The particles in this silver product are 6 to 8 angstroms, 6 to 8 10 billionths of a meter. Now listen to me. Silver has been the magic bullet for all of human existence. The Egyptians used silver instruments. We use silverware. They put silver in your teeth because nothing can grow on silver. Silver will kill anything but liberalism. I'm working on that. This product, you go to cpnlive.com, buy 1 quart of this product. It will last you for a very long time. Anytime you feel like you've been exposed to something bad, take some of this product, spray it in your mouth, or take a little bit and gargle it, swallow it. It will kill any pathogen. The average antibiotic kills 10 to 20 different pathogens. This product will kill 700 plus. Do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, do your doctor a favor. He's tired of seeing you. Get Supercolloidal Silver. Go to cpnlive.com, order the product. It's $29.95 plus shipping. I think it's $39.95 delivered any place in America right to your door. It's worth 10 times that. Check it out. If you're not 100% happy, just return it and we'll give you your money back.